I'm Jerry Schultz, an Associate Professor of Business at St. Charles Community College. Welcome to Impact, the blueprint to provide insight to leaders from a regional perspective. Today we are joined again by Erin Clark, an entrepreneur, real estate investor, and a creative force behind multiple commercial properties. Erin, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
I've known you since you were a child, since your childhood, and as long as I've known you, there's been this determination and a holding on to your goals. How do you think your childhood led to where you are now?
So I always say that I am my mother, just with a bigger head start and a whole lot of support. I watched my mom just work her face off. I watched her make lemonade out of lemons. And I think that my work ethic comes from her and from my family. It's a story I tell a lot, but my first job was when I was 14. I worked at a company called Cabin Care. My grandparents owned a company at the Lake of the Ozarks that they cleaned people's lake homes and did their landscaping and docks. So the concept was, before people would come down to their fancy homes, my grandparents would make sure they were pristine. And one lesson from that that I have taken with me forever is find a problem and solve it. There's a leadership principle that I have learned. But I was the vacuumer and the duster. My grandmother did the kitchens and the bathrooms. And, you asked earlier about being a perfectionist. I don't think that she told me I should be a perfectionist. She just expected me to do things well. And so that period of my life, I learned how to vacuum backwards and not show any footprints in the carpet. I learned how to move furniture really well because I refused to have any bugs in a house. Those are life lessons that at the time, maybe I didn't appreciate, but in business and in the projects that we tackle today, I am still vacuuming backwards and I am still moving the furniture and getting the bugs. And so I think that our childhoods really carve us and create us. And some people have great, amazing childhoods. I had a great one, and I had really awesome people that taught me great lessons. And whether I remember them day in and day out, they're ingrained pieces of my psyche that I'm very grateful for.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Can you share a little bit more about growing up and how you moved forward through those tough times?
Yeah. So I think just like every angsty girl teenager, I would say that my tough times or my adversity really was primarily in my teenage years. All the things that you call a positive today weren't necessarily labeled positive when I was 14 or 17. I was very headstrong. I was very competitive. I was unapologetically myself with my eyebrow ring and my jet black hair. I really just went to the beat of my own drum and felt a need to win and to achieve. And that really rubbed people the wrong way sometimes. I always felt like I was, a round peg in a square hole, or whatever that phrase is. I'll give an example. I mean, they say that the phrases that you use in your head can really shape your life. And I came out of the teenage angst years literally saying to myself, you're either going to love me or you're going to really hate me. And an example of that, when I was in 8th grade, they decided to hate me at that point in time. They changed their minds throughout the years, but that year they decided to hate me. And a group of girls, literally created a club. You've been invited to many clubs, I'm sure. I was not invited to this club. This club was called the Always Erin Haters Club, and they put it in permanent marker on their arms. And that is really the amount of angst that I created in the world around me. So that was a very painful memory for me, and there were lots of painful memories throughout that time in my life. But again, going back to the things that I believe the most in and the things that have really shaped me as a leader and as a friend and as a confidant, is that I truly believe we should be as authentically and unapologetically ourselves as we possibly can. And for the first 25 years of my life, I did that with my fists up, actually swinging sometimes. But as I've matured and as I've gotten older, I think what that experience drove me to do was just breathe deep and take a big sigh and know that even if there's literally a club of people who hate my guts, I still didn't die. I still am just fine. I still am who I am. And I think that at, age 40 and 20 years later and lots of successes and failures under my belt, that person is just fine. And so if I can be just fine, and if the lesson that I learned is that I'm going to be okay, then maybe I give people permission to be okay with who they are. So I learned a lot in my younger years.
And I hope those people learned a lot along the way.
They did. And they're great people. We most of the time when we are mean or when we are cold or when we say things that we regret, it's not anything about the other person. It's all about what's happening inside. And so learned that too.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'd like you to look to the audience, and from your wisdom, and you have a lot of wisdom, can you share 2 to 3 things, or as many as you can, pieces of advice you would want the young listeners to hold on to get them through their journey?
Okay, I think I can think of a few. So one piece of advice that I got from a teacher, a leader in my life who I cherish, I think, again, leaders can change the world, was a high school teacher. He was the only high school teacher, by the way, that gave me a B. I'm still bitter about that, but he gave me a B because he said I was a great writer, but I slept in his class, and so I was not going to get an A. There's probably a lesson in that in and of itself, but his name was Mr. Shelley, and when I was thinking about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go to school, he said, don't worry about it too much. Just go learn stuff. That was like the really eloquent way of saying it. He said, go learn how to speak and how to write and how to communicate. I ended up choosing a communication major, and what he was meaning by that was just go develop yourself. Go read books. This is my advice to younger people. Go get really good at maybe not just your craft, but go learn stuff. And that piece of advice, I majored in communication and Spanish. And that gave me a really broad skill set that translated to a very, a career that started in healthcare IT and is now in wellness and sales and real estate. All of those skills translated to all of that. The desire to learn translated to all of that. I've had many jobs throughout the last 20 years that just because I was willing to go learn stuff, I ended up being successful when I probably should have been canned. So that was a piece of advice that I would give everybody. Go read books. Go learn to love how to learn. Another thing that I really live by that I think is a flex and is something that maybe is an advantage that most people don't realize they have is that I've learned how to be aggressively patient. So, especially when we're young, we want things now. My son will work really, really, really hard at something. He is the most driven, hardcore kid, but he wants it now. He wants his jiu-jitsu belt now. He wants to win the 60-yard dash now. If he learns how to harness that for the long haul, I call that being aggressively patient. I'm not, praying for blessings and just waiting for them to come. I'm not sitting on my rear. I do watch too much TikTok, but I'm not just sitting on my rear watching TikTok hoping that the next deal comes or the next leader comes. I am working as if I'm sprinting. I'm working as hard as I possibly can with the long-term vision in mind. And so I call that being aggressively patient. It's actually an Andy Frisella quote. He lives in St. Louis too. And then I think, you know what? Let's do a real estate tip. My grandfather taught me real estate, not because he had a real estate license or he was some high-tech real estate investor. He just instinctually loved real estate. I think my mom lived in like 50 houses or something like that. But we are investors. We started investing back in 2000. I don't know, my mother convinced me to buy a house instead of going into an apartment. It was the best decision I ever did. So there's a tip. Go build some equity. But he just said, go buy the ugliest house on the block. So buy the ugliest house on the block, because what you're doing is you're raising those property values just by putting money into, the little ugly duckling that nobody else would take a second look at. And I think that principle applies to, obviously, real estate. We've had some really good luck in real estate just because of that principle, but I think it applies to leadership, and I think that it applies to our jobs.
Yes.
Go take somebody under your wing that you might see the potential in that other people don't, and you can really change their lives, and maybe they will go change the whole world. So.
That's terrific. So Erin, here we are. Thank you again. Thanks for making an impact with all of your information and knowledge sharing today, for giving us your time, your powerful stories, and for making an impact to our younger audience, which is very important. To our audience, thank you for tuning in to Miss Erin Clark's shows, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Remember, be bold, be confident, and be extraordinary. Thank you.